A TV shop contacted us to fix a high-end OLED TV with no power. It's completely dead. Oh, and also, it was hit by lightning. Normally they would have purchased new boards, but for this model, there are none available for sale. So if we can't fix this board for their customer, they're gonna have to toss out their $2,000 TV. Now they sent us their main board, not power supply. Most lightning strikes and power surges affect the main board. Now I don't have a TV to live test this main board in, which is a problem we'll tackle in a bit. For now, let's take a look at it under the microscope and see if there's anything obvious. Oop, how did I get there? Looking more closely, we can see the power surge came in through the Ethernet port and burned up several traces as well as a couple of capacitors. Often the damage is not localized. If we follow those traces, they go up, 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 and then underneath this heatsink. So let's remove the heatsink and see where those traces go. Oh, sorry, I don't know how that keeps getting there. All right, if we keep following the traces, they go up to this processor. There is a high chance that our processor is actually shorted. So let's take a look with our multimeter. Here are our readings. Here are the readings we are supposed to see. Here's a side-by-side comparison. So clearly we have some shorts on the processor, so our first step should be to replace it and get rid of those shorts. Juan, can I have you replace the processor chip on this board? This is a BGA type processor, which stands for bulk grid array. In simple terms, it means the processor is attached to the circuit board via hundreds of little solder balls. We have to use our rework machine in order to remove that processor. The rework machine will simultaneously heat up the processor from the top and the circuit board from the bottom until we reach that solder's melting point. Only then can we very carefully remove the processor. Now while the machine is warming up, let's go figure out how we're going to test this board after repairs. Now I don't have a TV to live test this main board, but I think we can build one using parts from our test jigs. Luckily the 2018, 19, and 2020 OLED Sonys all use almost identical power supplies. So we can use the one from this test jig in order to test our customer's main board. Now that we have our power, we have to figure out how we're going to turn on the main board. So I need either an infrared sensor or buttons. Unfortunately, none of our other test jigs have compatible ones, so I had to buy an infrared sensor and ribbon from eBay. Lastly, we'll need picture, so we'll have to figure out a solution for a screen. But first, let's check in with Juan and see where we are with the repair. All right, just want to check in on the board. How are we doing?
Well, it just beeped, so it's ready to remove the chip. But first, we're going to prod it to make sure that all the solder joints are liquidous. And it looks like they are. So now we're going to want to be careful because we don't want to impact the board too much, or else some of the components might fall off on the bottom, or we might have some bridging. And there we go, there's a nice clean lift.
Now we can remove the old solder left behind and clean up any burnt flux residue. Flux is a chemical we use to help solder flow more evenly, making both the process easier and increasing the chance of a good bond between the PCB and the component you are installing. We now add fresh flux and can begin the attachment process.
Alright, here you go. You can check it for shorts.
Thank you. Here's a side-by-side comparison. We've now confirmed we no longer have any shorts on the board, so we can go ahead and live test it. So we have our main board in our testing jig. We still don't have a way to get picture, but first I want to make sure all of my power and IR connect, which they do. And for our picture, we need LVDS ribbons. They typically connect on the other side to the T-Con, but this time I have a little bit of a cheat. My T-Con board is going to be this adapter that then connects to this universal screen, our mainboard tester. So that's what we're going to be using. Let's plug in our TV to power. Okay, we have our Sony logo here. Now we have our Android logo pop up. And finally, we are on our home screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in this HDMI over here, and we're going to go to the inputs. All right, and it looks like we do have picture now. And our last step would be to replace the Ethernet port and some of the damaged components here, but we're going to go ahead and do that off screen. It looks like we were able to save yet another TV from the landfill. If you like the content, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe.